Hello everyone and welcome back to the HJW gaming channel and back to my Rise to War for Dummies breakdown video. In this video I'll be looking into further details of the tile and resource gameplay elements briefly summarised in my beginner basics video. If you haven't seen it yet, check out the link in the description. And one thing is, these videos do take a lot of time to produce, guys. So if you find this helpful, please drop a like and please subscribe to see more in the future. I aim to upload every Tuesday and Friday. Now, into the game. Around your settlement, you'll see many tiles of various sizes, patterns, and outlined with different colours. The first thing I'll break down is how the detail on each tile corresponds to a resource. Initially, you will see some tiles that look like a plain field, and if clicked on, they have a corresponding power level of 1. This tile is not assigned to a specific resource and is the weakest possible tile. You only want these at the beginning to kickstart your commander's levelling and want to get rid of them as soon as possible. Every other tile will have an assigned resource and power level. Those that look like woodland correspond to the lumber resource. The grey tiles with varying size of mountains correspond to stone. The tiles with mountains of orangey brown are ore tiles, and the tiles that look like farmland correspond to the grain resource. There will be many different patterns and sizes of tile for each of these resources, representing the power level and amount of resources you gain per hour for owning this tile. Generally, the tile is very visually intuitive, with showing how much resource is available on each tile. Generally, the larger the plot on there, and the larger the tile, the more resource you get. After a few hours of playing the game, you'll likely learn how to spot a tile of the resource you're looking for. So we just look at a couple of charts I have here. These will show the power level of tiles available for each resource and the corresponding amount of resource you get for owning these tiles. You'll see that in both stone and lumber you have the same level of tiles with 15, 40, 90, 150, 200, 230, 260 and finally 300 power tiles being available. And a similar trend follows with the grain and ore resource, with these having 10, 30, 60, 130, 200, 230, 260 and finally 300 power tiles available. So normally you can see by jumping between ore and stone, for example, you can actually get small jumps in the level of tile by around 10 power, which allows you to gradually step up the level of tile as your commanders level up. One thing to note as you go through the game, if you click the resource bar on your UI, it will show a breakdown of each resource and where the level of resource generation you're getting is coming from. This can just provide some useful information if you ever needed to know where you were getting your resource from. The second element of each tile to consider is the colour of the outline of the tile, which is very, very important. First up, there are tiles that have no outline at all and just blend into the map. These are unclaimed tiles and therefore ripe for the picking, so plunder these to your heart's content. Tiles which you have personally already beaten and claimed, provided you haven't released them, will have a green outline. These tiles cannot be recaptured as you already own them and are benefiting from their resource and power production. You can now also click this tile to perform an action on them as you wish, such as gathering, building forts, mock battling, or moving your army on top of. Tiles with a blue outline represent a tile owned by a member of your fellowship warband. If you've not joined a fellowship, you will not see any tiles with this colour. These tiles have been captured and are owned by members of your team and cannot be stolen. However, you can move commanders on top of this tile. If you wish to move closer to another tile so you can capture adjacent tiles, this is a very useful mechanic. Tiles with a purple outline represent those that have been captured by a member of your faction but members that do not belong to your fellowship. Similar to blue tiles, these players are part of your faction and therefore your team, so you do not want to steal these tiles. However, similar to the fellowship tiles, you can capture tiles adjacent to these if you desire, so you don't have to path all the way to the tiles next to these. However, you cannot move commander armies on top of these tiles, as this is reserved only to fellowship-owned tiles and personal-owned tiles. Lastly, tiles with a red outline signifies tiles that are occupied by an opposing faction. If you click on this tile, you can see which faction occupies this tile. Be aware, this does not necessarily mean that this is an enemy tile, as your faction may have chosen to be allied with other neighbouring factions, so make sure to stay up to date with your fellowship or faction leaders as to which factions you are currently allied or at war with. When at war, you'll want to capture the enemy's red tiles in order to deprive them of power, resource and movement benefits associated with owning the tile. To do this, you would need to attack the tile by clicking and then selecting attack, similar to capturing a neutral tile. Your first few weeks of the capturing is where you'll want to do the most growing, and you'll want to take as many tiles and as many high power tiles as possible. There are two ways to increase the limit of the number of tiles that you can occupy. Firstly, through the dominance ring power, and secondly, by completing the quest chapters in the main tasks section. You will want to do this so you can have as many tiles as possible, which allows you to generate more power and resource for your keep so you can develop faster. As you continue to take tiles, you'll want to drop weaker tiles. This is done by clicking the tile counter along the top bar of your UI. This will then bring up a menu which shows a summary of the tiles you currently own and allows you to click either on that to instantly travel to that tile, and then you can click on the tile and click the X next to it to release the tile. Alternatively, you can just click the X within this menu to instantly release the tile. This activates a half-hour timer, after which the tile will be released and become a neutral, unoccupied tile, and you'll no longer receive the corresponding power or resource benefit, though your tile limiter will also decrease to allow you to capture additional tiles. There are a few other elements with tiles to be considered. The first of these is that some tiles can have what are called mobs sitting on the tile. These will be opposing armies, AI controlled, that will sit on the tile that you'll have to defeat before you're able to capture the tile. If you defeat these, you will gain bonus resources and also speed up items. In addition to this, you'll likely get additional XP for your commander that can also be boosted through ring skills. Doing this can be very beneficial for keeping your resources up, particularly in the early stages of the game, and often these armies are weaker than the tile armies, so it can be good for levelling up your commanders. Be sure, however, to check out the level of the mob before you hit them to make sure you're not biting off more than you can chew. Another differing tile is a tile that can contain a neutral unit camp. If you click the little search magnifying glass option on your map and go down to the third section, which looks like a camp, you will then be able to search for the varying different neutral units available within the game. These tend to be clustered in all the different regions of the map. So for example, if I click on Ents and then click search, what this will do is this will take me to the Fangorn Forest area where Ents can be found. If you attack and defeat the armies on this tile, and then also commit enough siege to capture the tile, you will now be able to hire units of this type. I'll cover this further in another video. And the final tiles of note are inaccessible tiles. Tiles which have, for example, rivers going through them, or large mountain passes, such as those, for example, between the Paths of the Dead and the Gap of Rohan, are inaccessible. Therefore, it means you cannot capture these tiles. This is counted as special terrain. If you try and click on these tiles, the game will quite clearly state you cannot capture these. So in order to get to the other side of these areas, you will have to take available tiles and go around these areas, often by means of a crossing if it's a river, or a tunnel through a mountain. That concludes my basic guide of tiles and resources. If you've enjoyed this video, please drop a like and a comment to let me know what you think I could do better. And additionally, please subscribe to see more of my upcoming content in the future. Anyway, I've been HJW Gaming, and I hope to see you on the next one.